There is a moment in the opening of Reacher Season 4 that changes absolutely everything you thought you knew about Jack Reacher, and that moment happens not in a warehouse, not in a cornfield, not in some broken small town in the middle of nowhere, but on a late-night New York City subway at 2 in the morning. And if you know anything about Gone Tomorrow, the 13th novel in Lee Child's series, then you already know that what follows that moment is going to be one of the most psychologically intense and deeply unsettling stories this show has ever attempted to tell, because Season 4 is not just a new location or a new case, it is a complete reinvention of what this show is willing to be and what this character is truly capable of when you strip away everything familiar and drop him into a world that refuses to cooperate with his rules. So let's get into it, starting with the subway, because that scene is the entire season in miniature. Reacher boards a late-night train and he notices a woman, and he is not going off vibes or gut feelings here. He is running an actual mental checklist, a forensic pattern of behavioral indicators that most trained professionals would miss entirely: posture, eye movement, timing, physical tension, the kind of reading that the earlier seasons hinted at but never fully committed to. And what follows is not a fight, not a chase, not an action sequence that ends with broken bones and a clean resolution. Instead, the woman pulls a gun and kills herself right there on that subway, and that death is supposed to close a door, and the system moves immediately to make sure it does, because her name is Susan Mark and she was a Pentagon staffer, and the speed with which official channels rush to call it settled is the first and most important crack in everything, because Reacher does not believe in coincidences, he believes in probabilities, and the probabilities here are screaming that this woman died to stop something from being found. And the harder he pushes, the clearer it becomes that the people resisting him are not confused or alarmed, they are controlled. And that distinction is everything, because controlled means they already know the truth and they have decided it is cheaper to bury it than fix it. And this is where Season 4 becomes something genuinely different from everything that came before it, because in Seasons 1 through 3 the enemy was physical, you could find it, you could hit it, you could bleed it out in a building and walk away. But here, the enemy is paperwork and silence and people who never appear on the street but somehow dictate everything that happens there. And the conspiracy does not stop at one secret, it moves in layers, one cover-up protecting another, one truth buried under three more, all of them connected to classified operations, foreign connections, and unofficial decisions that were never supposed to see daylight. And the deeper Reacher goes, the more uncomfortable a question starts forming, which is whether he is actually exposing this conspiracy or whether someone powerful is allowing him to pull certain threads precisely because it redirects attention away from something far bigger. And that paranoia is where the season lives, because every ally becomes a question mark, every official contact could be compromised, and help could easily be sabotaged, wearing a polite face. And then there is the absence of Neagley, who is largely gone this season, handling her own storyline, and you might think that is just a casting note, but it is actually one of the most strategically important changes, because Neagley was the one person who understood exactly how Reacher's mind works, the one person who could verify his instincts and back his plays, and without her every decision he makes carries more weight, more risk, more consequence, especially in a city like New York, where he is no longer the biggest force in any room but just another face in a crowd of 8 million people who do not care how tall he is. And Alan Richson himself has spoken openly about how physically and emotionally demanding this production was, which tells you everything, because this is not a victory lap season, this is a season built under pressure with an intense filming schedule that packed fight sequences in from the very beginning. But here is the twist: all that action might not be there to prove how unstoppable he is, it might be there to show for the first time the cracks, to show Reacher being worn down, fighting a system already in motion, already corrupt and far too large for any single man to dismantle, no matter how smart or how strong he is. And that is the real story of Season 4, not whether Reacher can solve the mystery, but whether he can survive a situation where being the smartest person in the room still might not be enough. With filming now complete and a 2026 release locked in, this is shaping up to be the boldest and most cerebral season this show has ever produced. And if you want to stay ahead of every twist, every hidden detail, and every moment the show will not bother explaining out loud, then subscribe right now, because we are not done digging and things are only going to get darker from here.